Roll for Crit is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Come roll with us at patreon.com/rollforcrit. Welcome to Roll for Crit. We're here today to talk about AEG's latest game on Kickstarter, Meeples and Monsters. This is for those of you who enjoy a fantasy setting like Dungeons & Dragons, say, but this time with more meeples involved. And this is not a role-playing game, it is a board game, a bag-building game in fact. You'll be collecting meeples of different kinds, trying to defend the city of Rowan from invading monsters, and get more victory points than the other players.
At the beginning, you only start with 2 kinds of meeples in your bag, but as the game progresses, you're going to get more. Right now, we can see we have a variety here, but you will always have some meeple in your tavern. In essence, it's your hand until it's your turn when you decide to place them. Now, on your turn, you're going to go through 3 main phases. You have the development phase, the main phase, then the draw phase. Now, first, you're going to look at this center row right here. You're going to decide to do one of these and or one of these. Here, you're going to assign your white meeple, which are your peasants. They're your most basic form of meeple. And either assign 2 of them to build or 1 of them to build and gain another peasant worker. This may seem like the obvious choice, but eventually they'll water you down, so maybe you're willing to put that extra peasant worker here to make sure you don't gain more. Now, building is very simple. You're going to choose one of these buildings and add it to any free space that says for rent. So let's say I liked this building. I would add it to this space. Now, whatever I cover up, I get that bonus. So in this case, it is getting a yellow meeple, which is a mage. Red is the cleric, black is the knight, blue is the warrior, and as I stated earlier, white is the peasant. There is the other basic meeple, corruption. You start with 3 of these. They do absolutely nothing. They're pretty much dead draws, but there are ways around them. There are also 3 prestige classes. They come in the green, purple, and orange flavors, and they will have their own special card. For example, this player has 1 paladin, so they have the paladin card out right now, which is stronger depending on how high the level of the monster it's fighting against. The 4 meeples here have the ability to level up. You can assign 1 meeple matching the color there in order to level up. The cost to get to the next level is written to the right, and that's how many victory points you have to pay. As you level them up, they can get stronger abilities, or in some cases, increase power. This is the attack value here of the meeples. Those will be important when you decide to go up against the monsters.
Once you are finished with the development phase of your turn, you will probably still have some meeples left over in your tavern. Now you can use those during the main phase to choose different options on the board and carry out different actions. Of course, there are the buildings that you put into place that we just discussed earlier, like the Warrior's Hut or the Mage Academy. They can have all kinds of different effects. You will see on the left, that tells you what types of meeples and in what amount need to be placed there. And on the right side, it will tell you what reward you will get. Often you will get another meeple of a different color, or you might get a quest card, which is something I'll explain in a little bit. Some buildings, like the Mage Academy there, have a crown symbol on them, and what that means is that you will be placing as many meeples as you want of the indicated colors, and they will remain there until the following round on your next turn. You'll receive some kind of bonus for them unless someone else decides they want that reward, and they can put more meeples of the correct type than you did and steal it from you. So there's almost an area control aspect to these tiles. You need to be confident or be willing to take the risk that you'll be putting forth the most meeples so nobody else can steal it from you. At the center of the board, you can see there are 4 other spaces as part of the city that are always there. You don't need to build those, and they work similarly. Put the correct meeples as indicated on the left, get the reward as indicated on the right. Now, you'll also see that there are some monsters along the sides of the board. There can be up to 3 in each quarter of the city, and those are dangerous because you'll see at the top of each monster space, or at least the number 2 and 3 monster spaces, is a symbol for a white meeple. What that means is if there are monsters in those spaces, that section of the city is overrun. If you choose to commit one of your meeples to a space in that quarter, then you're going to receive a new peasant meeple for each symbol that has a monster in that space. As we said before, this might be good early on because you have more meeples for your bag, but it's not a good one, it's not a strong one with abilities that you want, so it is going to water down your selection. If you want to take those monsters on and fight them, then you're going to have to look at the fight values on your meeples, and you're going to need to take a number of meeples with a fight value equal to or greater than the number on that monster card. You cannot go lower. If you don't have enough, you just can't take this option. And if you put them there, you commit them to that card, you will defeat that monster. You get to add it to your personal victory pile to be worth some points, and possibly give you some kind of a special reward. Now, you're going to be refilling monsters at the end of each round, so there will always be 6 on the field. Depending on what color comes up, that will tell you where they're going to go, so you won't always know. You might need to go over to the blue, for instance. And there are also a few cards in there that will say the Dark Council arrives. They're stacked in there roughly a third of the way through each part of the deck, and once the final one comes out, that's when you'll go into the final boss phase, which we will get to later. During all this time, you'll also need to be mindful of your quest cards. There are different types of quest cards. Some of them will trigger during the game itself. Some of them will give you points at the end of the game. They may reward you for defeating certain types of monsters, for having certain types of meeples in your tavern, or wherever at certain times of the game. And some of them will even give you special permanent bonuses that will make your meeples stronger as you continue playing. Once your turn is complete, then any meeples that you used are returned to your board. They go into your lodgings area, and this is when you draw a new selection of meeples from your personal bag randomly and place those in your tavern. If you don't happen to have enough left, if your bag is empty and you still need to draw more, up to 4 on your turn, then you'll move all the meeples from your lodgings back into your bag and draw what you need to fill the rest, and in this way you'll eventually cycle through and see some of the new meeples that you were rewarded with previously.
You will progress throughout the game, building up your bag, trying to get some of these special units, and maybe, if you're lucky, fully level up all your characters in a way until, as we stated, not 1, but 3 of these Dark Council cards arrive. Now, we should mention, by the way, really quick, what each time one of these arrive, you're going to get not only be able to draw more meeple permanently, increasing your sort of standard hand size, but it's going to add more corruption. Everyone's going to have 2 more turns to try and get some more bonus points to defeat these big bads. They're going to be similar to the previous monsters, but when you fight them, you don't collect them, so you don't have to worry about someone beating you to defeating them. If you're able to hit their goal of, in this case, 12, you're going to get not only the goal printed on the card, but there's a random goal on the bottom should you defeat them. Once everyone has taken their final 2 turns and have tried their best at taking out the Dark Council, you're going to see who has the most victory points and did the best at saving the city.
As you saw in our explanation, this combines elements of bag building as well as worker placement. So if you are familiar with either of those 2 mechanics, you'll probably be right at home with what to expect here. Of course, this time instead of tokens or what have you coming out of your bag, it's little meeples, and those meeples now are your workers, essentially, which is a pretty unique setup, at least to my mind. I'm sure someone will tell me there's something else that has done it before, but I don't think it's something you see very often in the board game world. And so that is where it's going to change things up. The things that you're adding to your bag aren't just resources that you can use or anything like that. They are going to directly affect where you can place your workers and how you are going to strategize, because you might not have the colors that someone else has that are going to allow them to take different actions than you.
Yeah, I feel most of the bag builders we've played, at least, usually you don't draw until it's your turn, so you don't know what you're going to have while other people are doing their things. Or it's like a shared bag that everyone pulls from. In this, it's more like, they're very similar already, but like in a deck builder where you get to see your hand, so you can sort of plan out what you're going to do next round. But unlike a deck builder, your hand's hidden. This, you can see like, well, Will's got a bunch of clerics, so he's probably going to use a lot of red spaces. The reason that's important is there's a few of these King of the Hill tiles. They're the only time where you're sort of competing for spaces. And if you put meeples on there and they're not kicked off when it comes all the way around the table, you're going to get a very big bonus. But if someone kicks you off, that means you wasted those meeples. So it's this very risk reward. You have to look at what other people can or you think they can or cannot do. Another thing I want to point out too, I really like is it's not simply just they took a fantasy theme with this interesting mechanic. This has a lot of great puns in them involving the meeples, because if you notice, they sort of went all in on the fact acknowledging their meeples. It's not just the meeples are representing something. For example, a lot of the villains tend to be things that if you're made of wood, you'd be terrified by, such as termites or a giant beaver. One of the big bad we have here is named Sauron, and he has a saw. Meanwhile, the cleric has a bottle of glue. So I really enjoy those slight little nods to the pun involving everything being made out of wood.
Yeah, it is a very fun twist on it that, it could have easily just been a generic fantasy setting, and that people probably would have liked that, but it wouldn't have been too unique. But yes, having that little meeple touch is fun. A lot of games have meeples in them, but very few really make them a focus and acknowledge the fact that they're meeples and not just representing something else. So that is a fun twist, and you can see the artwork, very cartoony, very appealing. I think families could definitely probably play this game without any trouble. Younger kids could get an idea of what it is. It almost feels to me like this should be a co-op game. There actually is going to be a solo mode as part of the Kickstarter that you may be able to get in addition to the base game. So if you just want to go in and defend the town without having to worry about other players, that's something that you can do. And the game builds up as it goes along to, as we said, this final boss battle as this comes out. So there's also that element as well, that it has a pacing where things are progressing and you're getting stronger, and then eventually this big bad's coming out. But that also is a little bit policed by the players themselves, as it kind of depends on how quickly you see that is based on how often players are fighting monsters and where they're fighting them too.
You enter the final round, as we stated earlier, and the bosses, when that third card comes up of the darkness approaching. And those cards also mean you're going to be drawing more each time you flip those. And some of the monsters will also give you permanent bonuses to your own meeple, as well as those quest cards, which probably will involve killing monsters. So it's really interesting, the power curve here. It's not simply I'm adding more powerful meeple to my bag, which is very true, especially when you get some of those weird, unique subclasses like the Ranger and Shaman. It's more of like, okay, I got a lot of quests that are going to permanently give my knights +1 damage or something. So I guess I'm going a knight build here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it just felt very interesting how that all works out. I got some really strong knights. Guess I'm going to just buy a bunch of those as quick as I can.
Yeah, the quest cards are really a big deal because you can have a bunch of them and they will guide you.
You will.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I think it's actually hard not to end up with a lot of quest cards.
Yeah, it depends. It could depend. But yeah, you'll definitely you'll be running through a few of them. And some of them will be end game stuff. Some of them are during the game that will help you out. But they will definitely guide your hand and kind of lead you on a path of what you might want to do as ways to get more points. Really interesting. And everyone's going to have different ones. So everyone's strategy is going to feel pretty different. And because those tiles that come out during the development phase are going to be probably different every time you play, there will be a lot of variation in what players are doing whenever you sit down for this one. So, Meeples Monsters. It's on Kickstarter. There will be a link in our description below if you want to check it out for yourself. Coming from AEG, if you like bag building or worker placement or meeples or just this kind of D&D-esque fantasy setting, something you might want to take a look at. And let us know what you think about the project in our comments section. My name is Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this has been a Roll for Crit preview. Here's an idea. Support our Patreon or like and subscribe to this channel for more.
Subscribing gives you a +2 to your charisma stat.